All right, guys, good evening. Thank you for joining us tonight. We appreciate you taking time out of what we know are very busy schedules. Dr. Bogert and I are both here, and you'll be hearing from him here shortly to really talk specific UCHS topics. I appreciate you for taking the time to not only join us tonight, but for those who presented questions. We had some really great questions, and we're here hopefully to clarify and clear up some of those ongoing things that you're curious about as we think about a reopening. Just to quickly recap where we are with the beginning of school, as most of you probably know, the Board of Education voted unanimously this past Thursday to begin the year virtually, and we did extend the start date by 1 week. So instead of the previously scheduled August 10th date, we did move to August 17. That week will not be a typical start week and again, Dr. Bogert will discuss this specific to high school shortly, but we felt like in order to have a successful beginning to virtual, we really needed that time in person with small groups of students to hand them their Chromebook and to talk through what remote and virtual learning looks like. And for clarifications, for our purposes, when you hear us talk about remote versus virtual, a remote learner for our purposes is any student who intends to be in person, but either by our decision or by an isolation situation, they become a remote learner. So their intention's to be in person, but for different reasons, they're not able to be. Maybe their own sickness. Virtual learners have chosen to, at least for the first semester, be a virtual learner. And they've made that commitment to be part of our UC Virtual Academy. I will say, as families think about their options, we do know that you always have options, but certainly in a pandemic, I would encourage those of you who have considered maybe a different route to please hang in with us. We feel like there's many positives, as we have noted here, to our virtual academy for you. The teacher supports, the device. There's a lot of things that we feel like make us the right choice for our family. So we do ask that you at least give us that shot. I know I've had many discussions with families who have considered, and many have already made the decision to go, to different homeschool options, and we certainly respect that, but we hope that you will hang in and stick with us, at least initially, and see what it looks like. Again, we know that that's probably the biggest thing that has a lot of questions around it is what's the expectations for online learning, and again, Dr. Bogert will talk through that shortly. And then August 24th, we will begin full virtual learning through Labor Day for our students. On that note, let me just say that we understand and know that for many of our students and families, that was a very disappointing decision. We agree with you. That was disappointing on our end. We certainly want to and intend to be in person just as soon as we feel like, based on the community numbers, which I'm encouraged by. If you're paying attention, the last couple of days have been very encouraging, and hopefully we're trending in the right direction. But at the moment that we needed to make the decision to let you know, we were going the wrong direction with numbers in our community. So we did make the decision through Labor Day to be virtual online learning. On September 2nd at 4 o'clock, we will be making the announcement to what post-Labor Day looks like. And again, I don't care at all to tell you that my hope will be that we're announcing in-person learning beginning September the 8th. So that's just a quick recap of where we are. And again, guys, I empathize with those of you who wanted to be in person. For those of you that not being in person creates hardships, we certainly apologize for that. We view you as crucial partners to this whole process, and it's never our intent to put our students or families in any kind of negative situation. There was a lot of factors that went into the ultimate decision to delay in-person learning. At the end of the day, we need to take the safety of our students, staff, and community, and the possibilities of in a situation where we have increased numbers, maybe the students are fine, but they take it home to a family member, to a grandmother or a grandfather that they live with, or a parent. So we just felt like the prudent thing to do, as all the systems around us are as well, is to go ahead and start virtually, but know that we hope after Labor Day that we're in person. There's been a lot of overarching questions that have came our way throughout the summer, so I'm going to highlight some of those. We have some very specific questions that you submitted. We will answer each of those between myself and Dr. Bogert. But certainly there are some popular topics that I'm going to go ahead and address. The biggest one right now has been around what does it look like if I send my child to school and he has to go quarantine or she has to go quarantine for 14 days? That's a great question. How will we communicate if we have positive tests in schools? So, to answer that piece, we will communicate any and all positive tests within our system, whether that's staff or student. Now, that does not mean we will violate anyone's privacy. We will not be able to share names or specific information, but you will certainly know if we have a positive test within our school family, which is our students and our staff. We will communicate that as soon as we know. When it could impact your student, we will specifically, between the health department and us, somebody will be communicating with you that your child could be a possible contact, which means they may have no symptoms, they may feel fine, but they have to isolate for 14 days because of an exposure. So, there's a lot of different scenarios out there. Just know that the communication piece will be there from us to you, whether that's your student individually or as a school, certainly as a system, what we're doing. I've had this question come up a lot too. This is a hypothetical, but I have people say, I'm not on social media. How do I get information? Everything that we push out through Facebook, through Twitter, through those social media platforms, it usually begins on our website, unicoi-schools.com. So there's a multitude of ways that you can be informed. Our district website, www.unicoi-schools.com, our Facebook, and our Twitter sites. And also, you can always reach out 743-1600 to the central office, or certainly at the high school. You can contact them at any time for any clarifying questions that you have. Again, the point of tonight is just to try to clarify some of those hot topic items and questions that we've received. Lots of questions around masks and what will the requirement be. I'll take you back to the reopening guideline that we introduced in mid-July, where we had 3 different thresholds of operation. Green, which meant masks would not be required. They would be allowed, encouraged, but not required. We have situations in the yellow where masks could be required, and certainly if we're operating in the red, and as of right now we're in a county mandate, we would follow those mandates. When we return after Labor Day, I have a lot of people asking, will masks be required? Guys, that's just short of a month away. We're not making determinations that far out with COVID. I don't feel like you can. A couple of weeks out, we can kind of look at trends and make decisions, but a month out, we're just not prepared to say masks will be required, masks will not be required. What I can tell you is prior to coming, you will clearly know that. We will have that pushed out to all of our families. I will encourage you real quick, if you haven't already, please jump on and fill out the online registration information that you would typically do to begin the school year. Communication, as I've been discussing, is crucial. We know that for a lot of our families, that information changes over the course of a summer, a cell phone change, an email change, an address change. Even though we're not starting for a little bit, please go ahead and get us that current information. Get online and register your students, whether they're virtual or in-person learner. Please get us that information so that we can get in touch with you to communicate important details. Food service. I am so proud of our food service staff, our bus drivers, our teachers, our support staff, our principals, our supervisors, everybody who had a hand in the food delivery system that we were able to put in place that lasted from March till the end of July. I've had a lot of questions around, will we be able to continue that in virtual learning? Right now, we are still working through with the State Department the release and a waiver that allows us to do that. That was approved on the federal and state levels previous, which allowed us to do it. That expired at the end of July, and right now, we do not have guidance, firm guidance, that tells us that we can, in fact, deliver meals. So we are hoping and trying to work towards that, but we do not have that information right now, and we will let you know as soon as possible. One of the biggest, if not the biggest topics recently has centered around extracurricular activities. As most of you know, this past Tuesday, the governor announced Executive Order 55 that allows for contact sports to resume under TSSAA guidelines. Previously, it had been announced that non-contact sports such as volleyball, baseball, softball, golf could resume, and those activities have been underway for quite some time now. Around sports, that is a very hot topic right now in this region and across the state. What I can tell you is we're having daily conversations with neighboring systems, regional folks, as to whether or not they're going to have sports. There are many systems, including ours, who are weighing out the pros and cons of that. What I can tell you is I recognize, our board recognizes, our coaches and administration recognizes the importance of extracurricular activity in all of our students' lives. It's important that our student athletes get a chance to perform. It's important that our arts departments and our drama folks get a chance to perform. Our band gets a chance to perform. All of these extracurricular things we feel like are vital and crucial pieces of the educational experience for our students. But again, we're operating under how can we do that safely at this time. We're in ongoing conversations again. It's not, if you're competing, you have to have someone to compete against. So right now, I can tell you that districts all across this region, we're having daily conversations about what sports looks like over the next 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Just know that we're committed to trying to offer everything that we can in as safe a manner as we can, given the guidelines that we're under. So there is no definitive answer to what the future of sports looks like. But what I can tell you is right now, currently, we are operating under the governor's orders. We are moving forward with practices. We are distancing our athletes as best as possible. Of course, in some situations, that's not always practical and possible in practice environments, but our coaches are working really hard to try to provide the safest environment possible given the nature of athletics and band and the various things that we're working on. So stay tuned to us. We will certainly get word out as soon as final decisions are made around what sports may look like and extracurriculars may look like. I'm going to jump on to a few questions, and then I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bogert, who will certainly be addressing some more specific things related to UCHS. One of the questions we received, how will COVID-19 affect the attendance policy that was put in place last year? If a parent has come in contact with someone infected and the family has to quarantine, will the student be counted as absent and reported for truancy? Also, what if the student wakes up not feeling well with symptoms? Should they come to school? That's a two-part question, and I want to be very clear about both parts. Number one, we understand that when we go in person, we are going to have students who fit this category. Either they're being told to stay home, they're being quarantined, or they themselves need to stay home because of their own sicknesses. And let me tell you, this time last year, we were rolling out very stringent attendance policies. As most of you will recall, our system was on the State Department list for absenteeism. It was certainly a huge focus. That's pre-pandemic. That's pre-COVID. This year, we understand the need to be very flexible with our parents, and attendance won't just be about physical attendance. It will be about participation and progress towards assignments and such. For example, if you are not physically able to attend class, yet you are engaged online, turning in assignments, then you're not counted as absent. And that's a really hard thing to explain out. Your teachers, Dr. Bogert, will talk more in depth with that. But we want you to know we're not focused on truancy this year. We're focused on education. We're focusing on your child, whether they're a virtual learner or an in-person learner, being engaged and progressing through this school year and making progress toward completion of standards, assignments, and grades. That's what it's all about. And that can be achieved in different ways this year, online and in person. So attendance, as we all have always thought about, is not the case this year. And we're again, communication is going to be a theme through a lot of tonight's discussion, but we need you to communicate with us what your student situation is, and we certainly will communicate with you on our side of how we can support. But the clear answer in this situation is, if a student wakes up with symptoms, should they come to school? Absolutely not. You should report that to the school that morning. At that point, they become a remote learner. And again, a remote learner means they plan to be in person, but for a short period of time or a long period of time, they're not able to. They're a remote learner. A virtual academy learner was never intending to be in person, and that's two completely different things that Dr. Bogert will speak to in just a few minutes. Will the iPads and Chromebooks be used for online classes or just to do work to turn into teachers? Guys, when we issue those Chromebooks, they are yours for the year, whether you're a virtual academy student, in-person student. We feel like Chromebooks can have as much value in class, in person, as they do virtually. We think that's a really good educational tool that we're proud to be able to provide to every student, grades 3 through 12 in our system. And so those aren't just for any specific thing. They are used, again, to support and help our students navigate the upcoming school year, whether in person or virtual. I did not register my kids for in-person school. I registered them for online. I work, and I was just wondering if you knew the exact days and times that we're supposed to come in to get your Chromebooks. Guys, that will be communicated by the school. I know Dr. Bogert has a plan that's specific to high school, and of course, K-5 looks different than grade 6-8, which looks different than the high school. So I'm going to let Dr. Bogert speak to that question in just a moment. I watched and have read Governor Lee's guidelines for reopening schools. The governor worked with the health department and set forth guidelines so children can be in school, yet we are going off on a different set of guidelines, and I was curious as to why and why we seem to be using more stringent guidelines than the state has set forth. I will say this in response to that question, and maybe whoever asked this question knew this, but guys, on July 28th, which was a week ago today, everyone received new guidelines from the CDC and the Tennessee Department of Health. And those guidelines were more stringent than the guidelines that we had received. I know that the governor has certainly spoke to the need for in-person. Again, I wouldn't argue that. There is a need for in-person. But in all situations, the guidelines that we've received, and if you'll notice when you read those guidelines, it will say where feasible, where practical. In a lot of situations, it's not either. And so we feel like if we're in a situation within the community where we're trending up with numbers, we can't safely follow those guidelines. And so, that's the answer to that question is, it's not that we have more stringent guidelines, but we are trying to react to our specific community at a given time and make decisions based off of that. Will there be band practice? That goes back to the previous discussion around extracurricular activities. Currently, right now, with some stipulations in place, we are proceeding and moving forward with that. I don't know that we'll be able to continue that. I don't know that we won't. That is something we're monitoring each day. Like so many things with this, it's very fluid and day to day. But will there be band practice? There is as of right now. But like many things, that's subject to change, and we will certainly communicate and get that word out. At this time, and before I turn it over to Dr. Bogert, I want to say Dr. Bogert, his staff, Mr. Smith, Mr. Lingerfeld at CTE, Dr. Horton, teachers, guys, they have worked so hard to put together a plan to make sure that whether we're virtual, remote, or in person, that we can move forward with providing your student with the highest education possibly. I appreciate the work that they've put in, and at this time I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Bogert, and then I'll wrap up at the end with some final comments. Dr. Bogert.
Thank you very much, Mr. English. Appreciate that. Appreciate this opportunity to speak to our Blue Nation and get some information out, have an opportunity to talk with you guys and answer some questions and be a little interactive tonight. So we really appreciate this opportunity. A lot of questions coming out. I'm going to definitely address several questions that have already been submitted, and then also some questions that I think I see coming through live on our feed here. But let me talk about some things just overall for the school itself and really answer some questions that may help us understand what the beginning of school is going to look like. And Mr. English referenced people picking up Chromebooks and devices and actually coming into school. So the week of August the 17th, we will actually be having students each day coming in person to the high school. Now, each day will have a different grade level. So, for example, starting on Monday, August the 17th, only seniors will be coming to the high school. And then on Tuesday the 18th, juniors will be coming. Wednesday, the sophomores will come. And then Thursday, our new Blue Devils, the freshmen, will arrive. And then on that Friday, students who have signed up for virtual days, they will be coming in to get their devices. So let me talk about what those days mean. We're going to have an opportunity to meet in small groups, socially distant, with all the precautions taking place. But we're going to meet in small groups as admin with the students by each grade level. And we're going to talk about just some general things, general rules, getting the school year started off. Then the students will actually go to homeroom, and that's where they'll be issued their Chromebook. We'll talk about handbook expectations, different issues like that, questions that they may have for their homeroom teacher. So that's when they will actually get their device each day. And then after that, we're actually going to allow the students to go through their schedules. I've told the teachers to prepare for about an hour each class period. We will be providing lunch that day for the students, so it's going to be a full day. Parents don't have to come to the high school on that day. We won't be doing individual meetings on the day that your child would come or your children would come based on their grade level. But the point of that day is to allow our students to pick up their devices, meet with their teachers, actually be in person with their teachers for a little while, and go through that schedule, the schedule that hopefully after Labor Day they'll be coming back to, but then also the schedule that they'll know each day when they start meeting, and I'll talk about this, the remote piece. So let me kind of, and Mr. English alluded to this earlier, so let me kind of talk about the difference between virtual and remote learning. So students that signed up for all virtual, you will actually be separate from the students who are going to be considered remote right now. What I mean by that is we have a online platform that we are working with as a district, and your classes will actually come through that. So while there will be teachers who will be overseeing that and communicating electronically, they won't necessarily be in class every day, and those students will be working at a different pace. They'll have different classes. We are working right now with the company that is putting together that platform, and we're looking at the different class offerings that we will have. Some of those will be a little different than the classes that we offer, and there might not be as many choices as we might have at the high school, but the virtual students will be completely separate. Now, if you signed up to come in person to the school, and you are now remote learners, okay? And so what that means is you're actually going to have your teachers in the school, and you're going to be meeting each day with those teachers. You're going to be communicating. We're going to have a class schedule, just like we would have if you were actually in school. For example, I'll give you an example time. This will probably be the time for first period. So your first period class is going to meet every morning starting August the 24th, every morning at 8:15. So the students' first period class will meet. They will meet via Google Meets. They'll be doing it online, on a screen, whether it's, hopefully they're using their Chromebooks, and if they have their own device at home, maybe they're using that or a phone, but it's really going to be most beneficial if you use the Chromebook that we provide for you. And so via Google Meets, you're actually going to have class for about 30, possibly 40 minutes a day in each of your periods. Some other example times would be first period, like I said, would meet at 8:15. Let's say second period is going to meet at 9:45. And then your third period class would meet at 11 o'clock. Your fourth period class might meet at 1:30. But you're going to be on there for 30, possibly 40 minutes. It will not be an entire hour and a half. That's one of the questions that I've gotten a lot, and I'm sure that other folks have gotten too. Are students going to be on a screen all day long? Well, no, they're not going to be on a screen all day long, but they are going to be in those meetings. Now, many of the students are familiar with the Zoom meetings that we did back in the spring, and so this should be quite similar. But this will be regularly scheduled meetings, and every class will be the same. So the teachers will be working from the school, for the most part, will be in their classroom, And every day, Monday through Friday, they're going to have the same schedule. And so everybody will know that schedule will be posted. It'll be put out. So whatever your class is, first, second, third, or fourth period, you'll know that first period, 8:15, you're going to be in class. So those are the remote learners. Now, that's, again, different than our virtual students who will be working on a completely different platform and won't necessarily be communicating each day with our teachers in the classrooms. Now, those classes will have expectations, and each of your teachers will talk to you about that. We'll talk about it as a school, but there will be expectations. You know, you can do them at your dinner table. I mean, a lot of kids may do them from their bedroom, wherever it may be, but being there will be one of the expectations, and showing up each day. And Mr. English alluded to attendance, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But attendance, we will see who's in the meetings, and then also an attendance factor will be the work that will be turned in. So we're using Google Classroom, as I'm sure most people know, as a platform for work. So each day after you meet with your teachers for those 30 minutes, they're actually going to post work or more information for you to look at and study. But there's going to be an assignment each day that the teachers will post in each class. So you're going to have work each day coming through Google Classroom, and that will be the platform, and you will have codes. Most of the high school students have used Google Classroom before, so they are, they understand, I think, how those work. But we will be providing information that first day. We're going to help make sure kids can get on. We have plans in the works to do videos for parents, for tutorials that we will put up on our website and on the Facebook page so that you'll know exactly what you're getting into with the Google Classroom platform. But it's very efficient, it's very useful, and we're excited to get on to that. So, and back to the attendance piece for just a second, being in the actual online classes at your designated time for your period each day, and then, as Mr. English talked about earlier, looking from an attendance standpoint, are you progressing in your work? And so it may be a combination. You might be sick and not actually be able to physically be on camera or on your computer, on your device that day. And so you might actually have to be out sick. And so we're going to look at those and take all those situations into account from an attendance standpoint. But there will be work, and the students will be accountable for that work each day. Now, and honestly, we've talked this week with the teachers. We're not going to kill you with the work, but there are going to be things that you're going to have to keep up with, and we want our students to get off to a really, really good start because we are going to be accountable for our work going forward as we start. So one other platform that we're going to use, all teachers are going to set up for each of their classes a Remind account, and each of their classes will communicate through that. So if they have updates, they have information, they have things that they need to tell you, there's going to be messages coming through Remind. A lot of our students have used it in the past, and they're aware of it, and so that's something that we will be setting up for you, and just another way to communicate, but it's going to be very consistent this year with our Remind apps. Some other things. You can always email your teachers. We would encourage that. Parents, we want to encourage you to email the teachers. If you have questions and you have things that you are curious about, please reach out to the teachers, email them, stay in constant communication because they will be there for you. Question that we've talked a lot about at the school this week are clubs. And I know a lot of our students are very active in clubs. We're excited to get you into those clubs because that's a great way to get attached to school. We're going to look at a plan to actually meet remotely. We won't be having in-person club meetings, but we're looking at doing a virtual club week. So be on the lookout for that, where we're promoting the different clubs within our school. We want you to be able to sign up for those clubs before you come back after Labor Day and be looking for Google Meets opportunities with the clubs as we go forward. So we're excited about that. I know a lot of folks, a lot of kids really get into the clubs, and we want to encourage you to be a part of that because being attached to school makes school a lot more fun, a lot more enjoyable for everybody, and that's what we want to encourage our students to do. I do want to mention that we do have in the works, and we're all hoping and keeping our fingers crossed that we will be back after Labor Day. I know that's the goal, and appreciate what Mr. English and the school board has done to really put us in a good position to plan for that. But we do have a plan. School may look a little different coming back. We may have to do a lot of things differently, but that's okay. We're going to get through this together, and we're excited about those opportunities. We just really want to get our students back in the hallways and going through UCHS and enjoy their school year. So those are just some general topics. I want to go through some questions, some specific questions that were turned in, and then if I can catch a few here on the live feed, I'll see if there's a few that I can answer there as well. But how will homework be submitted was one question that came in. Google Classroom. That's the platform that we are using. Again, we'll have training opportunities. We're going to make sure the kids and our students know how to use Google Classroom the week of the 17th. They should not leave the school without being able to use Google Classroom, whatever day that it is that they come. We're also going to provide information for parents because you'll want to look at that as well and be able to help your child with it or just understand what it is that they're doing. But Google Classroom is the platform that we'll be using across the board at the high school for turning in work. The hours of the online classes, the required times, I think I mentioned that earlier. The only one I can probably say for 100% sure is going to be first period. It's going to be 8:15. That's the one I'm probably the most sure on. We're still looking at some times for second, third, and fourth period, but we will advertise those really next week. We're going to announce those, and so parents, you'll know every day. If your child is at home and maybe you're at work or whatever the situation is, you'll know that at 8:15 every morning they should be in their first period class just like they would be if they were in person. And so we're going to make sure that everybody's aware of what those times are and what that expectation is. We've already talked, and Mr. English talked about it. I've talked a little bit about attendance and recording. It's really going to be a combination of being in those meetings. We expect our students to be at the meetings, and then also to be making progress and completing their work online. And that's very important that they keep up with that. The platform for the online meetings is Google Meets. Now, I know back in the spring we used Zoom a lot, but we have transitioned all to Google, so we'll be using Google Meets. It's a little bit different, but it's very similar to Zoom, and it works very well with our Google platform with all the different things that we use there. So we'll also have some information out on that as well. This is the one that everybody asks this time of the year. When are schedules coming out? Well, that's a good question. No, in all seriousness, we ask that question a lot too. Normally by this time, we'd already have the schedules out 2 weeks ago. But here's what's happening, and in the vein of just full transparency, with the students who, and some of you may be watching, with students who have chosen to go virtual versus in person. What that did for us is it meant that we had to go back, and this is something we've been working on this week. Our counseling department's done a great job of this. But we had to go back in and pull students out of schedules that we already had, the students who were going virtual. So we've been pulling those students out of their class schedules that they would have been in. And what that has done is it's changed a lot about definitely some changes in our master schedule, and then changes where we place kids in certain classes. For example, because of certain kids coming out, like right now, we've got an English class, one English class that has 29 kids in it and one that has 6 kids in it, and they're in the same grade level. So what we have to do is we have to figure out a way to even those class numbers up. And so for us, it's taking a lot of time to just sort of adjust, because we had quite a few folks who took the virtual option, and we're excited for you to do that. But it did cause us a little bit of a delay in finishing the schedule. So we could release the schedules today or tomorrow. We truly could, because everybody's got a schedule, but it may change in a week. So what we would like to do is get those things out, or put those things out when they're as close to being done or being set as possible, regardless of, I know some people will request schedule changes and things like that. So next week, be looking for the schedule release. We're definitely going to get those out next week prior to the day. Questions, how will electives and CTE classes like auto mechanics work? That's a great question. I noticed on the live feed that there are several questions about CTE. I think Mr. English mentioned this earlier about what that might look like after Labor Day. Right now, your CTE teachers are working incredibly hard to figure out how they can present information to you for these 4 weeks, or 3 weeks, 4 weeks, prior to getting back. And we get back after Labor Day, the kids are going to go into shops, they're going to go into labs, and everything's going to be just like it normally would. But right now, that content's going to be a little bit different. We're looking at this particular time as more of a what we call lecture versus lab, meaning they're going to get a lot of their lecture stuff in now, and then their lab time will be after we come back in person. So if you have CTE classes, one of the first things that you're really going to be looking for are those safety tests and the safety guidelines. And that's usually the first couple of weeks of every CTE class that has a shop component to it or a lab component. And so you're going to be doing those online. And so it's very important. It's great timing. We can get all that stuff out of the way so that when the students get back in person, like we said, hopefully after Labor Day, they're going to get back in person, and you can jump into those hands-on things that I know that everybody loves to do in the CTE. Will students have the camera on themselves during classes? Yeah, probably. There will be times, teachers will have each of their expectations. We do want to see their faces. There will be some expectations with that. Working, as many of you probably know, if you've been working from home sometimes a little bit different than working from the office, and we appreciate that. But we will have some expectations for that, being visible, being properly dressed, and different things of that nature will be important because other people will be able to see you on that Google Meets platform. So there will definitely be a time that we will ask you to be on camera, and there's going to be a lot of discussion, content delivery. The teachers are going to present things. They can give you PowerPoints and notes through Google Meet. So it's a great platform to use. We're looking forward to the challenge, and just a new way of doing education is really exciting for us. So I think that kind of hits all the questions that I had. Just looking at a few of these. If you have other questions, we would be more than happy to take them. As Mr. English said, check the website. As I mentioned earlier, you can email myself. It's bogertc@unicoi.schools.com. Would love to hear from you. You can Facebook message us, and or you can just call the school, 743-1632, and that will get you to the main number, and then you can ask for one of the administrators, and we'll be glad to answer any questions that you might have at that time. But let me just say again, I'm excited. Really looking forward. This is a very unique opportunity for us to learn a new way of doing things, a new way of educating your children. We're excited. The teachers are excited. There's obviously some nerves and some trepidation, but we're very excited about this, and I think it's great to have an opportunity to change education going forward for the future. So we're excited to get back in school, and just wish everyone the best. Stay safe, stay healthy, and hopefully we will see you very soon. So with that, that concludes my time. I'll give it back over to Mr. English, and thank you for the opportunity.
Appreciate that, Dr. Bogert. And again, just want to brag on Dr. Bogert and his staff. Just what he went through with the scheduling. That's just a little peek into what at the school level they deal with. And I know sometimes there's questions of, well, I don't understand why those schedules aren't finished. He just gave a really good description of what the ever-changing, and again, we respect and appreciate everyone's choice in this. If you choose virtual, if you choose in person, but every day that changes, and there's been some days we've had 10 or 15 changes called in, it impacts schedules and different things. So thank you for being patient with us, and that's just a small example, but really through all of this, as I said at the beginning, we view you as partners to us. You entrust your child's education to us, and that is no small thing. The enormity of that is not lost on us, and we appreciate you being patient with us and understanding that we've got some things we've got to work through, but our goal, again, in all things is to provide your child, your student, with the absolute best educational experience possible and to provide them the highest quality education possible. And whether that's virtual or in person, the goal doesn't change. I want to thank you again for your time tonight. This session and all of our previous sessions are archived. They'll be on the website. They'll be available. If you missed pieces of it, or you're at work tomorrow and somebody has some questions, please point them this way. We realize we didn't answer every question out there, but certainly the goal was to try to clarify some of those larger questions that we felt like we could communicate more clearly with in person than sending out documents. If you're like me, people don't like to read things, but they are willing to hear things. And so we wanted to do this tonight. A few thank yous for making this happen. Cliff Slager, the pastor at Love Chapel, is here behind the scenes. Mr. Tolley, our tech supervisor, John Hill, one of our technicians, they've been here throughout the evening since 4 o'clock, making sure we have quality, we have sound, we have lights. I appreciate so much the Love Chapel's willingness to let us use their equipment, and the pastor's willingness to be here and help us through that. Some other partners, guys, again, I want to brag on our teachers, our principals, our supervisors, our support staff. Just know that the employees of Unicoi County Schools have been working really hard at trying to get ready for this school year, whether that's in person or virtual. I want to thank the health department. You know, they support us in so many ways always, but this year, since COVID came into play, you know, we've worn them out with questions and phone calls, and they've taken a lot of time that truly they didn't have because they're so overwhelmed. The system is overwhelmed, but they've been such a great partner in talking through things and helping us with our planning, and we appreciate those ladies up there so much. The Board of Education, again, we knew last week that the decision to delay the opening was disappointing and frustrating to many people. That was not lost on any board member or myself, but I can tell you they've been very invested, very engaged. They've put a lot of thought into all of this, and I appreciate, you know, their commitment to our students, to our staff, and to our community. Again, guys, you know, we want you to be informed, and we know that in situations like this, there's a lot of things out there. Some maybe have some life to it, some don't. Some are strictly rumors, but we want you to know. And so feel free to reach out to the school level, to the administration. EnglishJ@unicoischools.com will get you. That's my email. 743-1600 is the number to the central office. Feel free to call with your questions. We don't want you out there in limbo. The purpose of all of these things, the videos we put out, the things that we put out are to keep you informed, but we know there's a lot of layers to this, so please don't hesitate to reach out and communicate with us as much as you need to. That's all we're going to have for tonight, but again, just because this session ends, we're always available to talk through your questions, your concerns. We appreciate you taking time out tonight. We hope that what days are left of summer, you're able to enjoy those, your students are able to enjoy those, but please know we're very anxious and looking forward to getting students in person, but really just getting the year started. It's what we signed up for. It's what we do. It's our passion. It's what we love, and we're looking forward to a great school year. Please don't hesitate to let us know how we can be helpful to you, how we can support you and your student through these very challenging times. As Dr. Bogert said, stay safe and know that we're here to help you in any way that we can. Thanks for joining us tonight, and hopefully we'll catch you guys really, really soon. Thanks again.